Well, hello, and welcome back to the Andy Warhol Diary and the old Razzle Dazzle. This is your pal Mubbo, coming to you finally on OBS. If you've been keeping up with the saga of my computer problems, I just posted a recent video detailing the entire saga of all my problems that I was having with my Corsair. And I tried multiple times to get it to work with any OBS, and for some reason it just wouldn't. So I finally scrapped it because it needed a BIOS update that is not supported anymore by Corsair. And I bought a refurbished Dell, and lo and behold, the OBS works just fine. So I'm hoping that this will give me some more options. Instead of aiming a webcam at a monitor, I swear, that setup was just ridiculous. So today we're going to be looking at Tuesday, December 21st, 1976. First, we got a little housekeeping to do, and that is if you have any information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for my uncle's murder in 2011, you can call 908-654-TIPS. That's 908-654-TIPS-TIPS. Or you can go to their website, www.uctip.org, www.uc, so unioncountytip.org. Thank you for any information that you might have on this. Next, of course, is the virtual version of the diary. You can go to this website at thearchive.org. I have found, though, that sometimes this website won't work. You try to type it in exactly, and it comes up with a warning that this website violates some whatever. I don't know. So what you can do is you can just search for the Andy Warhol virtual diary, and you should be able to find it through the link. And you just want to go to the link that says full text, and it'll bring up the entire diary. Today we're going to look at Tuesday, December 21st, 1976. So today, Andy met the human barnacle, Victor Hugo, which is right here, at the Halston store in New York City, and this is Halston right here. Andy remarked that the store was really unbusy, and he also noted how expensive everything was there, down to the handkerchiefs, and how he thought if they could just sell one handkerchief, they could afford their dinner. Has anyone seen Halston on Netflix? I started to watch it. I watched a couple of episodes. It's pretty good. It stars Ewan McGregor. He was also in a Star Wars movie that I never saw. He was also in Moulin Rouge, which is a great film. And Trainspotting, which pretty much everyone has seen. The Halston series was nominated for Outstanding Period Costumes. If you want to check that out, it still is available on Netflix. The workspace Halston used was located at 1122 Madison Avenue. And I couldn't find any Halston handkerchiefs, but I found some scarves that you could get an idea of how much they go for and what they look like. Andy mentions that Jackie O came into the showroom and immediately was taken up to the third floor. And Victor Hugo commented to Andy that Jackie doesn't buy very much. She just buys little things. You may know that Halston designed Jackie O's pillbox hat. But the funny story behind this article right here is referring to Jackie's hat was almost carried away by a gust of wind, and she inadvertently put a dent in the hat as she was trying to hold on to it. Now, I tried to find a picture of this. Number one, it's very difficult to find a picture of the back of Jackie O's head, and further than that, it's hard to find a picture of a dent in a hat on the back of Jackie's head. After that, designers were creating hats that purposely put a dent in the hat to mimic Jackie O's look. I'm not really a hat person, but I don't think that pillbox hats are very flattering. I mean, you really have to have a lot of confidence to like walk into a room with this on your head. It's not for everyone. After Halston's, Andy walked to Fifth Avenue to look for ideas for art projects. He went to the office for lunch with Todd Brassner and Rainer Crone, but he said he couldn't spend too much time with them as he was in the middle of painting. Todd Brassner, right here, was an art dealer, and it seems that the most famous thing about him is he was the only resident of Trump Towers to die in a fire on the 50th floor in 2018. It is reported that Trump refused to install sprinkler systems, but sprinklers weren't mandatory in older office buildings unless they were going through major renovations. There were smoke detectors, which is how the New York Fire Department was notified of the fire. Todd apparently had been trying to move out of the apartment. Brassner filed for bankruptcy in 2015, but for some reason was still able to afford this luxury apartment. After the fire, the board of Trump Towers sued the Brassner estate for unpaid condo charges totaling around $90,000. The fire was said to have started from an electrical outlet with multiple power strips plugged into it. Andy painted Brassner's portrait, which is right here, and it was worth around $850,000 back then when it was painted. Brassner also had hundreds of vintage guitars, ukuleles, and other instruments, and a multi-million-dollar art collection. The other person at this luncheon was Rainer Crone, a German art historian. He worked with Andy on several books and projects all the way up to Andy's death. During the lunch, Todd and Rainer were discussing Andy's paintings, and this book featured here. And Andy said that Rainer knows who owns which canvases. So this book is pretty much a catalog of all of Andy's works and who owns them and where they are. After the lunch, Catherine Guiness, who is right here, and she was one of Andy's personal assistants. Catherine Guiness called actor Dustin Hoffman, and Dustin said the screening for his self-made movie was at 5:45 p.m. and it's being held at 666 Fifth Avenue, aka the Tishman Building. Now this building is now known as 660 Fifth Avenue, and I'm not going to go too much into Dustin Hoffman because pretty much everybody has seen at least one of his movies. The building where the dance was going to be, the movie about his wife's dance was going to be held at 666 Fifth Avenue. The building is now known as 660 Fifth Avenue, and the original building design had a red neon display of the number 666 at the top of the building, which was visible from various points in the city. This building went through many financial difficulties and was sold, resold, and sold back to the owner a number of times. It had some very well-known tenants in its office spaces like Xerox, Citigroup, Mutual of America, Bantam Books, and theater chain Lowe's Cineplex Entertainment. There is also a movie that was made about the construction of the building called Skyscraper, which was described as a musical comedy about the building of this location. It's considered an experimental film, and it was nominated for an Academy Award in the Best Short Live Action category. And you can actually watch this on the YouTubes. This building also made some appearances in films and books, like in the novel Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. The character of Famine is having drinks at the top of the sixes. Good Omens is also a TV series on Netflix. Also, the opening scene of The Wolf of Wall Street was filmed there. The opening scene with the lunch scene with DeCaprio having a meal with Matthew McConaughey. By the way, The Wolf of Wall Street is one of Mr. Mubbo's favorite movies, and I have no idea why. He loves this movie. Also, if you're interested in the real Wolf of Wall Street people behind the characters, you can go on YouTube and see some parties that were filmed of the Stratton Oakmont Company They have some Christmas parties and a dance party, and you can actually see the woman who was played by Margot Robbie in The Wolf of Wall Street, the real person that the Margot Robbie character was based on. Back in the diary, the film that Dustin Hoffman was going to show was a short film of his wife, Anne Byrne, doing a Balanchine dance. That is a dance that was choreographed by George Balanchine. It's not a new dance called the Balanchine, which is what I first thought it was. George Balanchine was a ballet choreographer and the co-founder of the New York City Ballet. He was known as the father of the ballet and recognized as one of the most influential choreographers of the 20th century. He was known for many extramarital liaisons with ballerinas and dancers during his career, and it is noted that the exact number of pregnancies and children that he is the father of is not publicly available. He was diagnosed with Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, and this was diagnosed only after his death. He first showed symptoms in the late 1970s when he began losing his balance while dancing. He was incapacitated by 1982, and his equilibrium, eyesight, and hearing had severely deteriorated. George passed away in 1983. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is incurable and always fatal, and about 70% of sufferers die within a year of diagnosis. This is usually brought on by pneumonia due to impaired coughing reflexes. It is thought that Creutzfeldt-Jakob is brought about by the same disease which causes mad cow disease in cattle. This disease can be transmitted to humans eating beef contaminated with these defective proteins. And if you're worried about mad cow disease, you can also try eating kosher meat. The kosher slaughter process is significantly less likely to trigger mad cow disease, which is brought on by a brain trauma. And when the cattle suffer this trauma to the brain from the slaughter process, we're talking mass slaughter process, so it's a very quick thing, and the stress and the impact to their brain causes these proteins to be released into the bloodstream, which is thought to contribute to mad cow disease. However, kosher meat does not use this same slaughter process, so if you're interested in cutting your risk, you can try kosher. Back in the diary, Anne Byrne, Dustin Hoffman's wife, was an actress and had some small movie roles in the 1970s and 80s. She was married to Dustin Hoffman from 1968 to 1980. They separated and divorced as Dustin became more famous and his work was taking him away from his wife and children. Before Anne met Dustin, she worked and trained as a ballerina, which led to her working on the film with George Balanchine. Andy thought the film looked very professional and assumed they hired a good editor. After the film, Dustin invited Andy back to his house located on East 61st Street. Now, before we get to that, we need to look at what happened near Dustin Hoffman's house in 1970, which was located on West 11th Street. On March 6, 1970, Hoffman's house was damaged by an explosion caused by an American leftist group called the Weather Underground, aka the Weathermen. They were making bombs in the basement of the townhome that was going to be used for a Vietnam protest. They were intending on bringing the war home. After the explosion, police recovered 57 sticks of dynamite, 4 completed bombs, detonators, and other miscellaneous bomb-making paraphernalia. At the exact moment of the explosion, some photographers were setting up shots for a book called Bricks and Brownstone when the blast happened, so they were able to get the first pictures right after the incident. 3 of the Weathermen, Ted Gold, Diana Oughton, and Terry Robbins, were killed in the explosion. 2 survivors, Cathy Boudin and Cathy Wilkerson, were helped out of the wreckage and proceeded to flee on foot. Now, the interesting thing, if you want to read this article right down here in the New York Times, it notes that the 2 women that ran out of the house were almost naked. Now, one of them was known to have been in the shower. But the other woman, the woman that she was actually making the bombs, like she was making a nail bomb, for some reason was almost naked as she ran out of the house. the photographers or people on the street gave them something to wear, and then they fled on foot towards a subway entrance. So we've got Cathy Boudin. She was eventually caught and was able to get parole after serving 23 years. She obtained a professional doctorate in the field of education, and she died at the age of cancer in 1978. The other winner, Cathy Wilkerson, was in the middle of making a nail bomb in the basement of the townhouse that Daddy owned when the explosion occurred. So she's down there in Daddy's multi-million-dollar townhouse, fighting capitalism and fascism. She had already been arrested and bailed out during the Chicago Days of Rage riots. She was also arrested for encouraging a boycott of public schools in Pennsylvania and multiple other arrests for just being a nuisance. After Anne's dance performance, Dustin invited everybody up to his East 61st Street house, and Andy notes that it backs up to Phyllis Cerf's house. Now, when I read the name Cerf, it brought to mind the only person that I know with the last name Cerf, but let's learn about Phyllis Cerf first. Phyllis Cerf was born Phyllis Fraser, and she was an American socialite, writer, publisher, and actress. She was the co-founder of Beginner Books, the other founder being Theodore Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss or Dr. Seuss if you're a purist. Phyllis was also related to Rita Hayworth by marriage, and one of her maternal aunts was the mother of Ginger Rogers. So, of course, you have Rita Hayworth, better known as the poster in the movie The Shawshank Redemption, or Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, which is the complete name of the short story the movie was based on. And then, of course, you have Ginger Rogers, who was a famous Hollywood hoofer. Phyllis married a man named Bennet Alfred Cerf, who was a panelist on What's My Line, and he was also a writer and a publisher. He and another publisher formed the company we know today as Random House. Phyllis and Bennet had 2 children, including a son named Christopher Cerf, who looks like this. However, I know him from looking like this. Christopher Cerf wrote over 200 songs for Sesame Street, and if you have Spotify, you can listen to an entire playlist of Cerf compositions. Now, I have a funny story about Christopher Cerf. It's not really that funny. But you guys remember back in the infancy of Facebook, you would just be adding everybody that you could think of as, a friend request. Like, we would believe anything that we saw on the internet at that time. Like, whoa, Queen Elizabeth has a Facebook page. Well, I'm gonna Facebook friend her and tell her what a great job she's doing. Well, I spotted Christopher Cerf on Facebook, and I Facebook friended him, and I sent him a DM that said, "Hey, Christopher, I'm a big fan of yours. Just want to say hi, and I'm glad you're on Facebook." And he never responded, and I would keep checking my sent friend request, queue, and it would still be in there, and still be in there, and still be in there, and he never responded. And then finally, somebody deleted my friend request, so yeah, I got rejected by Christopher Cerf. I also I got a direct message from Jeff Lynne one time saying, I'm glad you support my music, and I guess you won't stop being a fan. I guess not. I know you tried to make me not a fan, but I guess I will never stop being a fan. And another thing I noticed very recently that I started getting on Facebook regarding like wacky, Facebook friend requests. First you notice them, they're liking all your posts, just like liking like crazy. And then you get the occasional comment, "Wow, what a beautiful smile you have. You must have a really good soul." And I can tell just by looking at your pictures what kind of person you are. But the weird thing is that all of a sudden, they're coming from all of these people in the Navy. like admirals and they work at the division of aeronautics and they're all divorced, newly divorced or widowed or something like that. I mean, I know the sea is a lonely place, but a middle-aged menopausal woman, I don't really think I'm their dream girl. I thought that was funny. Like, just all of a sudden I'm getting a lot from the Navy. Anyway, we're almost at the end of this. After Phyllis's husband died, that would be Bennet Cerf, she remarried a man, and he was the former New York City mayor named Robert F. Wagner. In 1975, after the marriage, Wagner moved in with Phyllis at her townhouse that Andy is talking about at 132 East 62nd Street. So this is right around the corner from Dustin Hoffman. This townhouse was described as magnetic and was designed by Denning and Fourcade Incorporated, who also designed decorator rooms for leading department stores like Tiffany's. And here's some of the rooms that they designed, and you can read a really interesting article about Denning and Fourcade, telling their story. Robert Denning and Vincent Fourcade were not only business partners, but they were life partners. So it's a very interesting article. All right, let's go be nosy in Phyllis's townhouse. It was built in 1899 and has 5 stories. And this is where it's located. So here's So here's where Dustin lives, 61st Street, and here's where the townhouse is. And this is what it looks like on the outside. Very unassuming. In 2018, it was back on the market for $24 million. If you wanted to rent it, you can get it for about $65,000 a month, and it makes a really good investment property. It comes with Warhol artworks, among other things, and an oil painting by Frank Sinatra. Here's some other rooms. And you could go right here to this article if you want to see all the pictures. I'm not going to post everything here. Now, I have an aerial view of 62nd and 61st Street because I wanted to try to figure out what apartment building might be Dustin Hoffman's. So here's Phyllis's place right here. Andy said it backs up to Phyllis's place. So it's one of these 3 buildings, which would be these right here. So like here's the restaurant, which is right here. So it's one of these 3 that Dustin had to have lived in. Because there's a little indicator right here for an apartment building. Of course, this is, 50 years later, so I imagine that things have changed quite a bit. And I took a snip of one of the apartment buildings. Now, there are lots of units available in these buildings here. So I took one that might have looked like what an actor back in the 70s might have lived in. It's just for a representation. The last thing Andy talks about is that Dustin was very nervous after he invited everyone back to his apartment, and Dustin was taking Andy around and showing him every little thing. Andy noted that Dustin decorated using oak, but not very good oak, so Andy thought that was funny. So the difference between very good oak and not so very good oak, very good oak is things that people like you and I, working stiffs, probably couldn't afford. And then not very good oak is this stuff that's more within our price range. But I gotta say, $900 for a bookshelf? No, I'm not paying that. It doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't automatically sort your books or anything like that. It's just a box with a shelves on it. Why is it $972? And actually, it was very hard for me to find some quality oak pieces, believe it or not. Because the thing today that designers are dealing with, they love teak. Teak is the number one wood that seems to be very in style these days. So if you're looking to redecorate. So that's it for this day in history. This day in the Warhol Diary. Now we're going to look at today in history. Tuesday, December 21st, 1976. There were a couple of things that happened today, but I like to go off the beaten path a little bit. So today in history, the item that I picked was the jury's verdict was guilty in the trial of Reuben Hurricane Carter and John Artis for the murder of a bartender and two of his patrons in a bar and grill located in Paterson, New Jersey. And this happened in 1966. So they were arrested, and then they were finally convicted 10 years later. After deliberating a little more than 3 hours, the jury found both men guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder. Reuben Carter was a middleweight boxer who was wrongly convicted in a prison for the murders. He spent 18 years and 4 months in prison. Bob Dylan wrote the song Hurricane about this case, and a film starring Denzel Washington called Hurricane was released in 1999. After much advocacy by people such as Muhammad Ali and other celebrities, the judge threw out the convictions and the men were released. Interestingly, for those of you who grew up around New Jersey or are familiar with the area, Bob Dylan visited Carter in Rahway Prison while he was being held there. He wanted to interview him and learn a little bit about him as basically homework for the song Hurricane that he was going to be writing. Now, Rahway Prison also makes it into another song sang by Bob Dylan when he was with the Traveling Wilburys called Tweeter and the Monkey Man. And when I heard this song, my being a huge Jeff Lynne fan and Traveling Wilburys, I often wondered how Bob Dylan knew the layout of that area, because there's a mention of a river bridge, which they're right across the street from the prison back then. You would go down the street and there's a bridge over the Rahway River, which was very well known, and there was a field right next to the prison, which was mentioned in the song. And I always wondered how Dylan knew where everything was. So this explains it. He actually went to Rahway, New Jersey, and visited Carter in prison. And if you're interested in the fate of the bridge in the 1990s, and I remember this well, the bridge was actually demolished because in the, I think it was like the mid-90s, 95 to 96, there was a very bad flood in that area, which that area is prone to flooding anyway. It's a low-lying area. And the bridge, the river flooded so much it actually lifted the bridge off the foundation, and it wasn't safe to drive on after that. So they just demolished the whole thing. And the area is just unrecognizable now. Like, they put in this giant freeway over there with like all of these exits and all this thing that looks like a pretzel, and making it even more confusing than New Jersey already is. So that's going to be it for this entry. And the next date we're going to look at is Wednesday, December 22nd, 1976. And I thank you for watching this video today. And thank you for being so patient while I figured out all my computer issues. But I think this is going to work out better. And I look forward to bringing you the next entry in the diary. MUBBO.